When they face those attacks, they're really up against it. Arguably, they're at more risk than the enterprise. The business needs to share that risk. In those situations, you could actually make the situation worse.
There's a bit of a worry, isn't there, around CISOs, like getting burnt out, getting frustrated, like you said, getting ousted because whatever they decided to do hasn't quite married up with what the board maybe thought. Who the hell's going to want to do it anymore? Like, is it just going to push people out and not going to want to do it? You know, I just don't want the hassle. I'd rather not do it. Like, do we need to protect them more? I mean, I personally think it's a joint responsibility.
It's an interesting one because if you look at the CISO of SolarWinds, right, you know, he got personally impacted by the breach that they had. So I think it's an issue as an industry that needs to be addressed. For me at the moment, it feels like the CISO is the fall guy. It's almost like in some scenarios, and I'm generalising here, but you know, if you've got a CISO, it's like ticking the box, we're good. If anything happens, that's where we're going to go for you know, responsibility and everything else. I definitely think that, as you say, should be a shared responsibility because again, it's business risk. And so the business needs to share that risk.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you buy into it as much as maybe I do, but I definitely agree with now. And it pains me to say it because 5 years ago, you asked me this, it was like security can actually prevent an attack.
Yeah.
Now it definitely feels a bit more like you've just got to be ready for the worst case. Like, what's your take on it? Like, do you feel like it's almost like an inevitable now for all businesses?
100%. Yeah, it's 100%. I personally feel that there's never 100% guarantee in everything in life in general,
true,
isn't it? And so there is a percentage risk that you are going to face a breach, attack, or whatever it is at some point. And as you say, it's about being prepared. But not only being prepared, it's testing that you're prepared, right? For periodic times throughout the year and things like that. It's because when that issue arises, you know, people start running around like headless chickens and all kind of logic goes out the window, right? And in those situations, you could actually make the situation worse. You know, you could loss of evidence, all that kind of stuff.
A poor response to it is a very different thing to, we've seen also evidence of this, organisations, even security companies have been breached and people are actually come out of it going, they did such a good job, what an amazing company, rather than going, they're a security company, they should have known better. You know, which is kind of weird, isn't it? It's
but it's human nature, isn't it? You know, we panic, we spent all these millions on security, you should have protected it, you know. And I think there's a big onus on the CISO to have those frank conversations with senior leadership teams and the board to say, look, yes, I'm a CISO, yes, we have the controls in place, we have the technology, but you need to know that there's a percentage chance we are going to face an attack. However, this is what we're going to do when we face that attack, and this is how we're going to recover. This is how we're going to communicate to either, you know, the markets, the customers, and everything else. And I think handling it in that way, I think, will lessen the impact to the business when the inevitable happens, right?
Yeah, and of course, most organisations don't even have anybody on the board or anything like you said anyway. So I guess, you know, there's an argument to say that the fall guy is not going to be, you know, there's not going to be a fall guy there for anyone.
And I think that's an interesting point actually around, you know, if you look at size and scale of organisations, we're talking about boards, we're talking about CISOs. Again, earlier on today, I was thinking about, you know, when you look at the mid-cap level businesses, the SMBs, you know, arguably they're at more risk than the enterprise, right? Because they don't have, like you say, they don't have the people that are in those positions. They might use, you know, services like yourselves, but they don't have someone that's got the actual business interests at heart internally. When they face those attacks, they're really up against it because their focus is on their business and what they do for their business. They're not versed on, you know, incident response and everything else. And for them, it's a really scary prospect. And there's been a couple of businesses recently. There's one that I won't mention the business, but it was in the transport sector. Been in business 135 years, 700 to 800 employees, ransomware. They were out of business in 6 months. You know, and it's those types of businesses that really need to watch and see things like this, speak to you guys to understand, you know, what they need to do, how they need to operate, how they need to change perhaps their business model and the way that they do it.
I mean, quite frankly, it's just taken interest in some cases, right? So many businesses are just so busy, focused on running their business and don't think they're a target. that they're not even entertaining it, not even thinking about it until the worst happens. So then then the call comes in, and then we're having to deal with it as a response, as opposed to like we could have been proactive and probably dealt with it for them in advance.
This comes back to a comment that I hear quite frequently, and it says, it'll never happen to us. We're too small.
Yeah.
Why would they go after us? And funny enough, I was having this conversation when I was having my hair cut the other day with a hairdresser. And if you think about it, he was talking about his payment card machine. And I was saying to him, you know, if you got breached today and they took 500 quid out of you, it's not going to put you out of business. But if they did that to 10 people, that's quite a good revenue stream, isn't it, per day they do that. So, you know, it comes back to the point, it doesn't matter what size you are. You know, the attackers don't care. All there is, it's monetary, you know, motivated, isn't it?
Largely indiscriminate, aren't they? It's just like go after whatever I can make some money out of.